All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Springing into Football. I got myself, Diego, and Zomb Phox UFL joining us here tonight. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for another great episode, our 12th of our third season. Zomb, it was a great time for you to come on because it's a very eventful couple last weeks in the regular season we have on our hands. Most notably, we have Luis Perez starting this week. Almost made his way into my background, but I decided to go playing today, and there's no problem with that. I hope he does well on the field this weekend, and so I'm looking forward to seeing him take the reins once again in spring football. It's an exciting time for the Battlehawks fans who, definitely expected him to start at some point. But Diego, I know you're excited after your Stallions came away with a win on Sunday against Orlando in a very back and forth game, but figured a way to come out on top at the very end, and that's all that mattered. It was a sloppy game from both sides, but I thought Birmingham did just enough to take to make Orlando drop their first game. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
man. I
yeah.
mean, it was a great game. I mean, I feel like with how we played that first quarter, I thought that was the best first quarter we played all season. I mean, the Stallions have definitely had a hard time just getting it together. I mean, we had a lot of things going on. We've had a lot of rotations in our lineup. Agent McCarron's still trying to get used to being a head coach. There's a lot I can say on that, but I'm just glad we were able to figure it out. Ferris, your Columbus Aviators looked pretty good as well against Houston.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I thought they looked pretty good. I'm more excited. I said a little while ago on the podcast that I wasn't very excited for for Ted Ginn to take back his coaching duties, but I've been I've been quieted down here the last couple of weeks. He's really turned it around and has figured it out to an extent. So, all right, Zomb, let's get your thoughts on these weekend's games. So, Diego and myself have kind of spoken out on our teams, but you were a former Michigan Panthers fan, and we're hoping they return because we actually happen to have a lot of fans of the Michigan Panthers in our group chat and just really all across spring football as a whole. So, just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this weekend's game. You can really look at it from any perspective.
I know the most interesting one to me in terms of pure like overall stats and stuff was the Kings Battlehawks game, that Derby Classic. Because the Kings, like last week, they ended up putting up like 160 rushing yards. They almost matched their entire season total in one game. And then this past weekend, they ended up going like 12 carries for 13 yards. But if you look at the stats sheet, their longest rush was for 17 yards. So if you do the math, if you eliminate their longest rush, they actually had negative yards per carry. They went 12, or I think it was 11 carries for -5 yards, which is just insane. So, I'm sitting here thinking, does it show more that Dallas has completely fallen off a cliff? Did they let Louisville do that to them? Or is it just that Louisville had one good week? Is St. Louis's defense that good? I think that's the toughest thing, and then we'll talk about it later. But St. Louis, man, thank God I don't got to watch Harrison Frost this week.
Yeah. I know a lot of St. Louis fans were eager to see Luis Perez start, and just a lot of spring football fans in general. It wasn't just St. Louis fans. It's actually ironic how this is going to be back at home for them this weekend, and you get Luis Perez starting his first game with the team at the Dome. So it only makes for more interesting storylines, and I'm sure there's other storylines that we have, to go along with them as well. So, all right, Diego, did you have any overall thoughts? I know you kind of got into it a little bit, that you guys got the win, but maybe thoughts on some of the other games potentially.
Yeah. I think looking at some of the other games, the DC Defenders, as Lucky said last week, I think they still look the best team in the league right now. They just look very competitive. I mean, they were able to just exploit what the Renegades are struggling with most. Austin Reed, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a Rick Neuheisel thing. I don't know. It's really not looking good. I don't know how you're gonna recover from a 3-game loss, especially with how we're looking right now. But that Louisville game, man, that really surprised me. I thought they'd at least score a touchdown. They were only able to get a field goal. They just looked very weak. I mean, how are you able to lose to Harrison Frost of all people? But I mean, all in all, it was a solid slot. I mean, it hasn't been mentioned yet. That Renegades Defenders game just hit over 1 million for viewership, which is a great thing to see.
Yeah, Zomb was talking about that a little bit in the pregame. I also mentioned to him that we are competing with a lot of other external events, actually seeing near their record highs as well. And probably, yeah, like their record highs are actually coming out now. Like the NBA had the most watched round 1 game 7 in league history. I mean, that is for us to be competing with that in the new year. I mean, that is really unfortunate on our end. And then Zomb is also telling me that NHL has seen some really positive ratings as well. So, for us still to get these ratings, I mean, Mike Rapoli talked about it. We talked about it last week on our episode, that he went on the Pat McAfee show and he kind of said that, it's football. And at the end of the day, people are going to tune in because it's football, right? There's obviously other reasons why our more loyal fans tune in, like ourselves, right? But when you're not the most supportive fan, like when you don't have that much knowledge, you're going to watch it because it kind of reminds you of, one of America's favorite sports. So again, there's a lot of reasons why, the ratings are what they are in some in some capacities. But for us, we're trying to create more fans like us, right? Who've kind of been from the start. But again, it all starts with those who just have it on in their background. And we've talked about that in past episodes as well. So, all right. So we're going to get into grade at quarterback. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. I would say there were probably a couple quarterbacks that probably performed above a C+ this week. And I don't think there weren't a lot that, I would say there was some poor quarterback play this week. I really think outside of the quarterback play, I think it really looked good. But I want to hear if you guys kind of had some of the same things in mind. So if either one of you guys wants to kind of open it up here.
I guess since I talked about this game already, I'll do the quarterbacks for the St. Louisville game, because this was one where I did a live play for it, and I mentioned this a lot through it. Even though stat-wise, Harrison Frost had an overall better stat line, he ended up having like 50 more yards. He had still a pretty poor 55 completion percentage, but still much better than Chandler Rogers' 47%. Frost threw a lot of balls that were what you would call interceptable passes that just either a Louisville Kings player dropped or didn't quite get there in time, to where I would say in this game, this was probably the weakest quarterback play we've seen across 2 teams in one game in a while. Because at least with like the Columbus-Houston game, McClendon did have one of his best games of the year, whereas Frost and Rogers both were pretty poor. I don't know exactly what grade I'd give either of them. It's just I don't think either of them were really too good, especially when you compare them to like what I know Jack Plummer had the fumbles, but Jack Plummer had a great game through the air. DTR, Diego, you got a good quarterback there. And like I said, McClendon. But man, this Thursday night game, I guess is a good thing a lot of people didn't watch this game because, man, these quarterbacks didn't play too well. If I had to give a grade, I guess I'd have to be like a D+ for both of them, probably a C- for both. I don't think either of them were like Austin Reed a couple weeks ago or Harrison Frost a couple weeks ago bad, but I think either of them were good.
All right, Diego, do you want to get into your weekly pick here?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, still trying to look. I'm kind of neck and neck with.
Yeah, that's all right. I can go ahead if you want. Yeah. Whatever you think.
I'm gonna look at Jalen McClendon from the Columbus Aviators.
Okay.
I do think this was one of his better games he's had this season. I think that's a majority is because he played a very weak Houston team. But I mean, even that's besides the point. I feel like that he just looked very comfortable in the pocket. Made some very solid throws. He just, like, remember before the season began, this was his first start with a team since 2023, I think, dating back to college. So it's just amazing to see him get these great opportunities to show what he can do. And the team may be 2-4 right now, but at the same time, McClendon has still done so much as a quarterback to help lead this team. And even in the losses, he still tried to keep that same composure, which is what you need in a quarterback. But if I had to give him a rating, I'd probably give him a solid C plus. Nothing outstanding, just definitely one of those performances that is enough to help you win the game. As we saw in the first half, it started pouring really crazy and stuff. So not really a lot of flashy plays, but that run game still looked absolutely superb for Columbus.
Yeah, it brings up, an interesting point. I kind of talked about it a little bit, and you touched up on it very, very well. It really, it goes much beyond the quarterback play. Quarterback play is very helpful, but sometimes, you need every other aspect to kind of pull its weight. I think if Louisville had good quarterback play on Friday when they played, on Thursday, excuse me. If they had good quarterback play on that Thursday night game, then I think, would have been easily a different game. I mean, St. Louis did not look that good. And we talked about it. I mean, Harrison Frost, he has his moments. He was turning over the ball, but Louisville just couldn't convert. And sometimes that would be on the fault and on the shoulders of the quarterback. So again, good quarterback play can propel a team. But sometimes, you want your other parts of the team to also flourish. And I think we've seen good cases of this really throughout the entire season with a lot of our teams. So again, we'll see if it's a continuing trend, but I'm hoping that I think DC is really the most balanced team. We talked about that with Ducky. I'm sure Zomb, you can agree with that. There's probably no argument across, the entire league, but I'm sure someone can find a different way to kind of spin that. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and grade my quarterback of the week. So the quarterback I had in mind was Jordan Te'amu from the DC Defenders. Was 20 of 28 passing, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, with a 71.4% completion rate and 116.2 quarterback rating. Very solid. And ultimately, the Defenders got the job done. The final score was 24-6 over the Renegades. And we talked about it. The Renegades didn't look all that good on offense. But again, Jordan Te'amu has been playing, pretty solid, I would say, in the last couple of weeks specifically. He did have an interception to his 3 touchdowns. But again, something that very minimally affected the game. If it was at a more clutch time, like potentially in the third or fourth quarter, like when the game may have been close, I would give him a lower grade, but I'm probably going to roll with a B- for him, just because, I would go higher. I just think DC has so many other good parts on the team. I feel like he could be a product of the team's success in a way. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think he's a good quarterback. I just think DC has so many other good parts on the team that it kind of makes it hard for me to give him such a good grade, because they have, a great running back room. They have a great defense. Their receivers make great plays. We saw some really acrobatic catches, some one-handed catches that sometimes may have not have been the best throw, and Te'amu may have been bailed out. Right. And that could be, argued as well. But again, I think, gets a B-, still a solid grade. DC overall as a team has been rolling. So no complaints for them, but Jordan Te'amu gets a B- for me for last week's performance. So, all right, we're going to get into playoff standings. So actually no one is eliminated yet. Zomb, you were kind of walking me through, I don't think Diego was in here yet, but you were kind of walking me through the potential odds for postseason. You want to kind of get into some of those?
So I don't think we've gotten the official
Yeah.
league tiebreaker scenario, but I think we all assume it's the same as it was last year, just minus the conferences. So if that's the case, it means that the first head-to-head tiebreaker is head-to-head record. So if you only play a team once and you beat them, you have that edge. Now, that only matters this week for DC. DC only plays Houston and Birmingham once all season, and they beat both of them. So if DC wins this week, they get to 6 wins, meaning that no matter what happens, the best record the Stallions and Gamblers can get is also 6 wins. They have tiebreakers, so they edge them out for a playoff spot. Then when it comes down to the Kings and the Aviators, they play the Kings this week, meaning if they beat them, the Kings fall to 5 losses, so they can't get to 6 wins, and that gives DC a 6th win itself. And if Columbus loses, they no longer can get to 6 wins. All of this is to say, if DC wins and Columbus loses to St. Louis, DC will clinch a playoff spot. As of now, that is the only clinching scenario, either to miss the playoffs or make the playoffs, but that's the one we have for this week, which is different from last year, because I actually looked back to my picks last year. At this same time last year, there were 2 clinching scenarios for teams that would miss the playoffs in the Showboats and Brahmas. So complete 180 from last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing I want to touch up on that is that it's crazy that, we have this kind of scenario in week 7, but you can also think Mike Rapoli and co getting rid of the conferences for the first time that we've really had in a long time, which I really like it because it's a free-for-all, and really just, I think it honestly just gives all the fans of the teams a reason to still tune in and just really just, one thing that I'm really interested in is how is the first overall pick going to work? Like, I'm curious to know what teams are going to be. I mean, there's really no saying who it could be. I mean, I guess you could say Houston, but there's still time that you really do not know for right now.
Yeah, it's all interesting. We notably had Daryl Johnston, former VP of operations, I believe. He came on for a whirlwind, just that no one expected it, for a post of himself just saying that whoever wins the game between the Showboats and the Roughnecks, right? Correct. Yeah, will be awarded the first overall pick. But Diego, you bring up an interesting point. I was going to say, let's not get that far ahead because we're still waiting playoffs, but it then made me think, they still have to address it in some degree, right? Because like Zomb said, they're also going to have to address what the playoff structure is going to look like because we don't know if it'll just follow the structure Zomb suggested or if it's going to be something completely different. I would personally prefer if it followed what Zomb said. It kind of makes sense. It kind of flows pretty, easily, through the football mind. People can put the puzzle pieces together. But at the same time, I mean, we're here for whatever they have. I just hope it doesn't, I just hope it stays traditional and we don't see something that could potentially sway away fans. So
you're gonna make us play a play-in game between 2 5-5 teams to get the last spot.
Yeah, those are always fun, right? The play-in games, the games that mean that only so much. And so, again, I wouldn't be opposed to any of these ideas. I'm excited. I'm eager to see what they have in store. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. The first overall pick, depending on if there are 2 teams that are, on the brink of, getting to that point, I think we'll have to potentially get an announcement. I'm hoping Mike Rapoli comes out and does it himself. Probably unlikely. Might be, someone else in the ownership group, but not ruling it out by any means. So
I know one person it won't be from that ownership group. The Rock.
Oh, The Rock. Yeah. He didn't do it. He didn't do it last year either. Right. So, I mean,
nope.
Yeah.
He made one post about the league this year.
Yeah. No. That's literally how it was. I think it was it was after week 2. Other than that, he's had literally no presence whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I hope I'm sure him and Mike have been in regular contact. At least I hope they've been. I really couldn't give you an answer on that if they have. I might have to ask Pro Football Newsroom. They always have some pro insight some insider news, whatever. So we'll have to see. But it's an interesting topic. Playoff standings. The draft. What's that process going to look like? I'm sure we'll get into that closer to the end of the season. And as we await more announcements. So, all right. The Renegades losing streak, can they rebound? We kind of talked about it. Austin Reed, Rick Neuheisel. There's no one. I don't really know who you put to blame at this point because Austin Reed has had he's had his downfalls. Rick Neuheisel, I remember he was talking to his team one time. He's like, we've had 3 games in 11 days. And at this point, we've had a lot of quick turnarounds across a lot of our teams. So, week 7. You're still, looking to make the postseason. You can't really use those excuses anymore. Guys, what do you guys think? Do you guys think Rick Neuheisel's at blame? Do you think I don't think the Renegades defense has also looked the same since before. In the first couple of weeks, they looked pretty good, but again, could be a result of the offense, scoring a lot, kind of keeping the pressure on the other offense to do some of the same stuff. But again, I don't know. There's a lot of moving pieces to that team right now, and they need I don't know. They either need to quarterback change. Hopefully, North Central legend Luke Lanen can get in, or if they decide to play Greg Ward Jr., who started a couple games in college. I don't know.
Hey, I mean, that one drive he came in, he looked better than Reed did.
Yeah. No, listen. What do you got? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, what is really the spark that this team needs to potentially get back in the playoff race?
With how I see it, I definitely think that they should just go ahead and consider a quarterback change. I mean, as I just touched up on a couple minutes ago, being on a 3-game losing streak is not going to help anything. I mean, in this league, it's kind of pretty unpredictable with what can happen. For all we know, Louisville could just start going on a tear and try to make a playoff run of their own. And, at this point of the season, when you're going into the 7th week, you really just need to just go back in the room and just figure out what is going on. But also, as you said, Ferris, yeah, that defense has definitely looked pretty lost as well. I mean, it definitely doesn't help that you're playing the reigning champs last week. And then you just get completely upset by the Louisville Kings. And then, I don't know. There's a lot of different factors you can go into. As you said, injuries, I'm sure, has played a major part as well. And just really just the full health in general. I mean, they just need to figure it out because, after this weekend, then they got to go and play the Orlando Storm, which, if they lose this week, it's not going to get much easier.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Like, I had somebody ask in a comment, like, what's the issue with the Renegades? And I sat there and I'm like, I think with Reed, I think that you could put the blame on coaching a bit. And Reed, I think it's that once he had the film put out on him, like the way he plays, I guess there's something that's really easy to tell on him. But the defense, I don't even know what happened because, like, for those that don't remember, in week 1 against the Gamblers scored a return touchdown. Mm-hmm. So if you actually look at it, this was the first week all year where the defense allowed less points than the week prior, all year. And so they were falling off before they had that, I call that drive from hell where Columbus ran for like 30 minutes of real time on them. So they were already falling off, and I have no idea what happened to the defense. Offense, I think it's just Austin Reed got found out. They realized, let's just double team Vaughns, and he can't really do anything. But the defense, man, I don't know what the issue is with that defense. It's like everything just culminated and it just got worse. I have no idea what this Renegades team needs to do, but I agree with Diego. It would have been really nice if you had Luis Perez in your roster right now.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
It'd be really nice if you had Luis Perez in your roster right now, but I think you got to go with Lennon. Like, this was a much better game from Reed than the last 2 weeks before that, and even then, he still didn't have a great game. He got sort of bailed out by Chandler Rogers and Harrison's Frost. I would call it a mid-off, but that's probably being generous to both of them with how they perform. But so, like, he got kind of bailed out by those two guys because he had a bad performance. And most weeks, that's the worst performance of the week by a quarterback. And that's him being better than the last 2 weeks. So I think Neuheisel's got to make a QB change, whether it be to Greg Ward or Luke Lennon. Honestly, I'm fine with either. I mean, hey, as long as you put in Greg Ward and you don't pull a quarterback draw on 2nd and 19 like Kevin Sumlin did, I think you'll do all right. But I have no idea about the defense, man. I have no idea what happened to that defense.
Yeah, again, I talked about it. The pressure, that you keeping the foot on the gas from an offensive standpoint hasn't been there, because you guys just got into that, right? And then, that could be a result of why the defense is not playing like they were, because now the offense is not, performing at a very high level. So again, there's a lot of things to think about, whether that's a quarterback change, potentially some different schematic things in the wide receiving, the passing game. I think the run game has looked okay. Again, I mean, it's only a part of what their offense could be, but they have so many weapons on the outside that I think you can really go in a lot of different directions. It really shouldn't just be a run power offense like maybe Columbus, might excel in, or Louisville, like they've tried. They obviously have failed very many times, but they're trying to get somewhere with that run game. You can see it's definitely their focus. But for Dallas, passing has really always been the focus, but now, they've kind of hit a roadblock and they need to figure something out. So, again, a lot of interesting things. They're playing Birmingham this week, and if you asked me a couple of weeks ago who I had winning that one, I'd tell you Dallas. But really, I think Birmingham looked pretty good on Sunday, and I think they'll give a good run for Dallas's money. So, all right. DTR beating his former team in Orlando, and then Jack Plummer, that is, and then DTR throwing for over 200 yards. That game to finish off the weekend, I tell you, that was a good game to finish off the weekend. I don't, the ratings weren't up there like our Dallas DC game, but that was a great quarterback duel. If you took one out of the 4 games from the past weekend, that was the best game that had the most total quarterback play from both sides. DTR obviously had his flashes like he always does when he is on the field, and then Jack Plummer, who could sometimes have his down moments. I really thought he also played a really good game as well. So again, it was a great game to kind of cap off the weekend. Really happy that we had pretty good fans, pretty good turnout at Orlando. Could have been better. Weather seemed to be okay, and some other factors, but overall, just a really good game to cap off the weekend. And this time, Birmingham coming away with the win. And I remember Ducky said something. It's never easy for the same team to win twice. So Diego, you guys get the split, and there you go. It just gets you guys in the right mindset going into this game with Dallas. But did you guys have anything on that game? I know there was a lot of interesting things floating around.
Yeah. I think you touched on it perfectly with saying, this was definitely the best game they could have ended the week with, of just having a shootout between both teams. As I touched up on earlier, we definitely looked like the dominant team that first half, but then Orlando put on a pretty good performance that second half as well. But I mean, when you reach this point in the season, you're going to expect these teams to be at their absolute peak. And for DTR to go out and do this in his second week in Birmingham is really good. But it also helps that he was already with the Storm this season, so he knows the playbook. He knows what players to look out for. He probably has an idea about what Anthony Beck is going to call next. No, this was definitely a much-needed win for us. Definitely going to be another must-win scenario against the Renegades next week. But, looking at the Storm, they still look really good. A lot of good, promising pieces, especially in the first year. I think the crowd in Orlando have been great. Definitely a lot better than the Orlando Guardians. Rest in peace. Still wish they just stayed New York, but that's besides the point. All in all, it was a great game.
Hey, I mean, to that point, Diego, if you win next week, you could be 4th in the standings next week because you'll have head-to-head over Dallas, and the top 4 teams are playing the bottom 4. You guys might be 4th next week.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I swirled around some interesting things, and then you guys came in and did a solid and did as much more. Like I only thought about a couple things. There were so many things that happened in that game that you could think about. DTR with kind of a flip of the bird post after the game with saying that you shouldn't have traded me, you shouldn't have did this. He he posted 2 XFL analyst posts in his Instagram. Like, 2 of the slides were former XFL analyst posts. That was funny. We talked about it a little bit.
I only hope that that AJ McCarron ended up taking the team to that steakhouse,
Oh yeah.
because remember, in one of those mic'd up moments, that's what he said to try to get the motivation going. So I better hear an interview this week saying that they went.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear something about it. I remember the broadcasters were kind of getting into it a little bit, and I was trying to figure out some context, and then I realized, oh, AJ McCarron had plans to take him out to a steak dinner. So, and then I think who was that at the end of the game that wanted the 2 tomahawks? Was that
yeah, it was him. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you heard it from DTR. He wanted 2 tomahawks from the steak dinner that AJ McCarron promised. And again, we'll see if they went through with that plan, but I'm hoping they did. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get into our next topic here. So, DC sees a massive drop in attendance. Is the novelty wearing off? So obviously they were the reigning champs. They are now projected to be the champs this year, just based on odds, right? Very, very preliminary, very early, right? But nonetheless, projected to be, 2-time champs now of spring football. So what would you guys say? Like, what is potentially going on over there at Audi Field? Do you think, are they getting tired of ruling the new league, or what's kind of going on over there? I mean, I know there's probably not a definitive answer for this, but there could be some different things you guys could potentially have. If not, what we can move on.
It's weird with DC because, like, at least to me, because obviously we know that last year there was the James Larson bomb that talked about the season ticket numbers just completely collapsed last year. Like, I thought that there were more people in the stands last year than the year prior in 2024. Even though the announced numbers were less, I think we all know DC had great season ticket numbers. So at least, like, as they talk about Houston, like, they didn't get 5,000 people in there. It looked like DC did better last year than the year prior. So the fact that they're doing so much worse this year is crazy. Like, their number 2 weeks ago was their worst number by about like 3,400 ever. And then they just went down almost another 1,000. And it looks even worse that you have the 3 expansion markets that all outdid you this week as well. It's rough for DC. You know what? Maybe if you're a good team, it's bad. I mean, like, maybe that's what it is. If you're winning, you suck. Is it a coincidence that Birmingham gets their highest number ever when they're having their objectively worst season ever? I mean, hey, maybe there's some correlation there that you actually don't want to be that good, because the fact that DC is on this insane winning streak, because I mean, it's crazy. If you date back to last year, they lost like the 2 games in like week 9 and 10 only because they sat their starters. So they essentially, not when they're resting backups, they're on like this massive winning streak of like things like 7 out of 8 games if you eliminate the 2 games they rested. And the fact they're doing this poor in attendance, I really don't know what it is with DC, why they're doing this bad this year. I mean, maybe it's fatigue, but like, it's been years. You would have expected to see that last year, so I really don't know.
Yeah. To counter off that, yeah, I really don't know what to say. And this is the same city that they just picked for the United Bowl game in June. So, it'd be really nice to see if they can just try to get some sort of momentum going. I mean, it's kind of notorious for these spring football leagues to see somewhat of an increase for the final home game. So we could see that for DC. Maybe they break 10,000, but I can't say I really have high hopes for this game this weekend against the Louisville Kings. It might get even worse. Hopefully not. But they just need to try to recognize something so they could just still get people interested going into next year, because even with 12,000 at that home opener, it's still a bit concerning for DC.
Yeah, I mean, especially like to that point. I mean, last year they had like 500 more people, and like we all agree that like from week one till now the marketing is back to being trash. But heading into week one, I mean, would you guys both say this is the most marketing we've had heading into week one for the UFL?
Yeah, yes.
Mhm.
And then you also had the halftime performance. You had the you had the first game sale, and you still didn't break last year's week one. Like, I agree fully that, Diego. I would argue that the week one number in hindsight looks even worse than the 8K and 7K did now, because that number should have been much better than 12,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to DC's attendance numbers. It's actually funny because when we had Ducky on, we were excited about the United Bowl. We were ready to, kind of see how the attendance was going to shape out. And now, a couple weeks where the attendance numbers haven't looked promising, you kind of are in a situation where, again, like Zomb said, you want to push it out as much as possible and potentially get back to that full capacity we've seen in past seasons. So,
I mean, we were all USFL guys. Like, I've got a guy wearing, a USFL hoodie. So, like, I feel the same way that, like, with the USFL, having the game in Canton was great because you would plan to go to Canton. Like, you'd make a vacation out of it. I think the biggest issue with the UFL the past 2 years, and I mean no disrespect to the city, but I guess disrespectfully, nobody really says, I'm going to plan for a weekend in St. Louis. So I think that's part of the issue for the St. Louis, and I guess that's the one good thing about DC with that, is that even if the attendance for the actual defenders isn't good, if you're like a big fan of the Kings or someone, you can justify, hey, I'm going to spend a weekend in DC. So I hope that helps, but I guess we'll see. We're a month and a week away, so I guess we'll see.
This is a little bit unrelated, but I just remembered that this past weekend, on the topic of DC, Jordan Ta'amu just broke 10,000 in passing yards in spring football of all time, when already starting to shatter some of those old USFL records, which, I mean, this is random, but at the same time, just want to give a little recognition for Ta'amu. And,
is he going to take that Spring King title from Perez?
Man, he honestly might. I mean, heck, there's still a lot of potential for the Renegades to make the championship. I mean, a Ta'amu and Perez championship, that would be awesome.
Oh my God, Battlehawks defenders, Ta'amu Perez would. Oh my God, especially because Ta'amu used to be on the Battlehawks.
That would.
Oh my God.
That would. Again, we have no script speculations in the UFL, right? We have no speculation that the UFL is writing a script. But if they were to implement it, that would be a great idea. Yeah, that's all I have to say for that. Listen, that's something we should mention in the group chat. I'm sure we'll get a lot of pledgers. We'll have a lot of people that would like that idea too. But again, again, DC's favored to be in that game as of right now, right? Again, they still have to get to that point, and like you said, Ta'amu might take the Spring King title, but Perez now being named the starter, and which we'll get into in a little bit, right? He still has potentially his last couple of games in spring football. He was considering retiring last offseason, right? So now begs the question, how's he going to look in that offense? Again, for all of us from spring football fans, we all want him to look good. Again, if we get that Perez Ta'amu championship, I think that would really be a good look. Again, those are quarterbacks that have been with us in the past iterations, and so if we can see them in this one, it would really be full circle. So, all right, we're gonna get into Javante Payton traded to Houston, and then Phelps to Louisville. I had a first name on that, but
Lonnie, I think.
Lonnie Phelps, that's right. Yeah. So wide receiver for defensive tackle at this point of the year, a little bit confusing. I will say that in past years we've had player for player trades, right? Similar stature, but I would say, this trade, when I thought of it, we had one of our group chat members. He was like, explain this in NFL terms. and there wasn't much I could think of right off the bat, but it's just one of those trades that, both teams aren't looking very good. So it's like, hey, let's trade one player and get another player in return. Let's just see what happens, right? There's really no harm in doing these trades. Again, completely different positions. I think Louisville wants to kind of bolster up that defensive line, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then you have Louisville wanting to Louisville's the defensive line, and then Lonnie Phelps was from Houston. So you want Houston you want the Gamblers to just improve their wide receiver core in whatever way they can. So again, we'll see what that looks like. Again, I'm not, speculating anything. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on this when you kind of saw it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if, there's really much to talk about. It's kind of one of those trades where you look at it.
I want to expand on that whole explaining NFL terms thing. When you mentioned it, I try to get some players in my head. I would say in NFL terms, this is Darnell Mooney heading to Jacksonville for, let's say, Andrew Billings, I guess. That's what I would say. But wait, what?
I mean, like, they're looking at it. They both only played half of the season. I guess I think Houston won the trade. I mean, Lonnie Phelps hasn't really had that much an impact on Houston. He has like 2 total tackles on the year in 3 games. I don't really get it. Like for Louisville, I don't get it at all. You already have a good defense. I don't get why you're getting a guy that's going to be like, defensive end number 7 on your roster. Like, I know he's been great before, but like this year's not having the best year. Javonte Payton at least has 80 receiving yards this year. I think it's better for Houston, but like, this is like, if I'm going to grade the trades, it's like, okay, Houston, I'll give you a D+. Louisville, I'll give you like a D-. Like, what are we doing here?
No.
Yeah, I mean, like it is a very confusing trade. I mean, I guess you could say Louisville just has more confidence in their receivers, like Tariq Black and things like that. But at the same time, it's kind of puzzling for Javonte Payton to go to Houston when Houston has struggled for a long time at their quarterback. They still don't really have a definitive quarterback in their room. But I mean, they did just pick up a new one, Rise Plumlee, which I think he could be a decent quarterback. I don't know if he'd start, but
I mean, if Sumlin wasn't capping when he said it, I mean, he said that he was supposedly the quarterback 1 they picked in the draft. So in theory, if he's not lying, this is the guy he wanted to start all year. So you would hope that's good. But even then, you're signing him in week 7. I don't know. John Shea Kirkland, quarterback 1, here we come.
Hey, he did play in high school.
Hey, does Houston play Dallas this year one more time or no?
No, they don't. It's just once.
Oh, could you imagine Greg Ward versus John Shea Kirkland, the big 2026?
That would be great.
That alone would cause the viewership to go to like 5 million.
That would be up there with Teamu Perez. I'm just gonna say that. That would be like Diego said, that would shatter some viewership, some nods, right? So, all right. Wait, what else did I have for that one? Do you know? So I've mentioned this reference before, but do you know the corporate says it's the same picture? You know that meme, right? Or I don't know. I was thinking about the he ain't do nothing but step back one. I got
the dude with the toothpick.
The Greg Heffley one. You could do that one too. Right? There's the Greg Heffley one for that trade, right? It's the same picture. He grew a year, and there was no difference in his picture. So, right, there's a lot of, again, the trade just really didn't make sense. Some of the trades actually in the past haven't made sense as well. We've had other trades this year. Again, when we had the quarterbacks, Jason Bean of the Defenders was a little weird to me. I don't know if Zomb, you were on the same page, but.
Hey, we'll never forget last year Marcus Sims for what Cam Carter or whatever it was, and then it ended up being a complete lose-lose for both teams.
Yeah, especially considering that he didn't even survive training camp.
Or how about trading Luis Perez for a backup offensive tackle?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, we've had some wild trades in our time, like covering spring football, but that's what makes the sport so great. It's so unexpected, even beyond the field, that that's why you love the game. That's why you cover it. You're a part of it because really anything can happen, and that's why like we're only so grateful that we deal with so many of these things because it just makes it so much more fun to cover. All
I
right.
want to know if somebody tried to trade for AJ McCarron to play quarterback.
Man.
Yeah. There was something in the NFL like that a while back. So when Kendall Hinton was the quarterback one for the Broncos against the Saints, right? That's a big pull right there. Zomb
That's a great pull. That
Okay.
was a game that was played.
So that same game, actually, fun fact, the Broncos wanted one of their old like quarterback coaches, like on staff to suit up for that game, and the NFL actually like ruled against it. Understandably so, right?
Hey, Bill Russell won a championship. I'm pretty sure as a player coach for the Celtics.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on, we got to bring
That's a
back
much
some of the
different
old
time.
school
You're right.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, just a little side note, not to get too much off topic, but it's a good transition into our week 7 predictions. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm gonna put it up on the screen. One sec. I just want to see.
Get ready for this, viewers. This is the greatest pick selection you'll ever see.
Here, let me see. I want to see, Diego, if you can put it up, just because I have. How it shows like your Instagram notes. Sometimes, like the people that come up on that, like I just don't want it like showing up on the screen. If
You're gonna leak the DMs.
Yeah. Well,
I can pull it up.
Okay.
All right, I got it.
Yeah, that was a different way to say that. That was good, Zom. There you go. Okay, so we're putting up the predictions. There you go. Hopefully,
this
you
is,
have.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay, so there you have it. So those are our week 7 picks. Obviously, we'll get into them. A full sweep. I think this is the first time all season. Yeah, and I think
I think the first time this season and the history of our podcast we've had a sweep. I think.
Okay. Yeah. Again, we've seen a lot of different teams crack these predictions, but this is a full sweep, right? I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into ours, us 3, right? And then Ralph and AJ, I'm sure probably have much of the same explanations. Like I don't know, like if they were on our show, if they were on tonight, I don't know how much more they would add. It kind of like for this segment, like, us 3 explaining it is probably for the better good. Just because it would probably take a while if all 5 of us went through it. But nonetheless, okay, we'll get into the records first. So Diego, I actually tied you last weekend after. Hang on. So Orlando beating, or excuse me, Birmingham beat Orlando, so that's what allowed you to tie me back. But if I remember correctly, was it Columbus beating Houston? No. Did you have Columbus winning that one? I feel like you had Houston.
Yes, I did have Houston.
Okay, so that was the one that allowed me to get in front, but then you tied it back up on Sunday. So I had Columbus along with Ducky winning last week, and that allowed me to take the lead for the first time this season. But then Diego was able to tie back up. The only person that was actually the lone exception. We almost had a sweep last week, but Diego picked his home team against the Storm, which ended up working out and allowed him and I to still be tied at 14-10. So Raf 11-13. And then Diego, something we could have done, I'm just thinking of it, we could have did like an overall features record. Again, I don't know, the criteria would be a little bit different because we don't feature someone every week.
I think the way we could do it is if we could just base it off just how many games they were right. Let's say if someone went completely 4-0 or if someone went 3-1, probably something like that. Probably.
Okay, yeah. Or you can I I don't know, or you can compare like the different features, like Zomb, put him up against Ducky, like maybe, I don't know, versus, Zomb this week and then put him up against Ducky last week, just those are just some extra things you can do with it. But no, it all looks good. We can get into our picks. So did you guys want to say anything? I mean, we can just be very general. We don't even have to go by person.
Sorry, I'll go first on this one. So I'm gonna start with that St. Louis game. I mean, this one's kind of a no-brainer. Even before Perez was announced as a starter, I thought that the Battlehawks had a huge edge over the Aviators. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be surprised if the Aviators probably, put up some good solid points, but I think St. Louis will dominate. And then going into Louisville, DC, also the same thing. Not really expecting much here. It would be nice to see Louisville improve a little bit, try to look a little more competitive. And then Dallas and Birmingham. I mean, if you asked this maybe prior to the season, I mean, yeah, you would still do Birmingham winning it. But then let's say you fast forward to week 3, then, yeah, you would pick the Renegades beating us just with how we've looked alone. But, no, I think DTR will still go on a tear. Well, we don't know if we'll see a quarterback change or not. And then Orlando, Houston, also the same thing. I mean, come on now. I feel like this is one of the weeks where it's just gonna be utter domination. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, if I had to pick a team to possibly get an upset, I would probably say Louisville. Just because of Chandler Rogers alone, he is pretty talented. But yeah, no. Hopefully, I'll go 4-0 in my picks.
I wouldn't be stunned if Louisville pulled it off. I wouldn't be too stunned because I know we briefly mentioned it, but I think this is where the Mike DeLillo trade could pay off. Because I think it's safe to say that Mike DeLillo knows the DC Defenders playbook better than Jason Bean knows the Louisville Kings playbook. So I think that could end up helping Louisville, but I think what's more likely is what we've seen with every other rematch game where DC probably kills them this week and then Louisville either makes it a super close game or wins next week. Honestly, to me, I think the one that was the closest to me, I think, was actually Columbus-St. Louis, purely because of Columbus's ground game. If they're able to get off running, I think they would be great. Before the Perez news, I was debating on picking Columbus, but I was still going to pick St. Louis. But then after Perez, I'm like, man, dude, if Perez is even like 50% what he was last year, that's still better than what they've had at quarterback last few weeks. I think St. Louis wins, but Columbus's path to victory is just eating all that clock like they've done against Houston, Dallas. If they can do that, I could see them get the upset. But, man, dude, St. Louis got a really good defense. They got a lot of really good receivers. And that anchor at the quarterback position is being taken away from him. It's pretty good. As for Birmingham, I'm with you, Diego. It's like this Renegades team's looking really bad. The Stallions team is looking offensively, is looking really good. Defense looking better than what it was the week prior. And the Storm, I think this could be a trap game. I think this is the biggest trap game because I don't think anyone thinks Houston will win. But, dude, if Houston wins this game, man, that I guess we'll crown them the champions.
Yeah, again, I want to keep it very general. Like I'll get into, some of what these games may entail, but yeah, I think you guys covered most of it. I think I was going to say Columbus versus St. Louis could potentially have upset potential, but again, Luis Perez kind of puts any of those hopes to bed. If it was Harrison Frost, I tell you, we may have a chance, but because it's Luis Perez, I'm pretty confident, even though it'll be his first start in his team debut. I think he'll still look like he historically has looked, which is pretty darn good, right? So again, I would tell you it's an upset potential, but because Luis Perez is managing the quarterback duties for St. Louis, that's probably the best. That's probably the best team to go with. And again, we want all these games to be competitive. Like this is a fair reminder that we want all these games to be competitive, but as loyal fans, as fans that have supported the league now for years, we have to have a professional side to us as well, and we have to say like, okay, we know we have to draw the line at some point. Like we know what these games are gonna entail. Like this is probably the most lopsided week. Again, if you told me a couple weeks ago, I'd tell you like some of the outcomes would be a little bit different, but I think at this point in the year, I think all of these picks make sense. There's no when everybody sent their picks into the group chat, there was no surprise. I looked at them. I took an initial glance, and I'm like, okay, haven't quite pieced it together yet. And then I looked again, and I'm like, okay, it all makes sense, right? The complete sweep kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we get into that. Raf and AJ, they pick the same. Raf, 11-13. He's starting to come a little bit closer. That's also the nature with getting a little bit more up there in the records. Then AJ was second. And I think Diego, you've been leading this entire year? Well, not with the exception of now.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, yeah, it's really just been you and AJ that have been able to tie with me so far.
Well, actually, this is the first time I've tied you, unless was it last week too? Yeah, I think
you were 11-9 last week.
Okay, so this is the first week I tied you, and then AJ has tied you before, but Rob, he is. Listen, this is the complete sweep, so we should all, if all these games wind up true, which I'm sure they will, right? Barring something crazy, right? The records will stay unchanged. But Zomb, that was something we talked about. The strategy for this sometimes is picking in the upset, which Roth has done historically, which has sometimes shaken up his record, as you can see.
And another thing to note too is that we still have the week 10 games as well, which in that final week a lot of teams will rest their starters. So we could have a scenario where we just go random, and then that will definitely dictate how our records are going to end for the regular season, even though that's a little far ahead.
Yeah, I don't mind going random. I don't mind. Again, we have to see which teams take out their starters, or if we get the announcement that if we have the two teams fighting for number one overall pick, and the winner of that game gets the number one overall pick, right? Who are you gonna tip the boat in the favor of that for that one, right? Like that's another interesting storyline, right? So again, there's a lot of floating around. Right now we're tied. It's been a pretty good season in terms of picks, but we're looking to see if somebody can potentially run away with these. So, So okay, we'll get into our closing thoughts. All right, so guys, did you have anything to kind of close it off? Diego, thanks for sharing that. Did you guys have anything to kind of just seal off the week? Again, I said it was lopsided, but again, could go either way for some of them. Could start off slow for some of these teams. I'm not ruling that out by any means, but really just overall thoughts you guys may have had.
If you're a real sicko for some fun stuff, like we mentioned, the bottom four are playing the top four seeds this week. If somehow, some way, all the bottom four seeds win this week, it'll mean that the 8th seed is within like 2 games of the 1 seed, and the 2 seed is within 1 game of the 8th seed. That would make for some compelling football the last 2 weeks of the season, or last 3 weeks, I should say.
So wait, so you're saying if we get the reverse sweep, right?
Well, technically Birmingham winning is technically an upset. So if Birmingham wins and the other 3 win, that would put the worst record at 3-4. That would be a 5-way tie at 3-5, 3-5. That'd be a 5-way tie. Then you'd have the Defenders would be at that point 5-2, and then you would have the Storm and the Battlehawks. That would be 4-3, I believe. So you'd have 1 game between 2nd and 8th, and 2 games from 1 to 8, which would just be oh my God, that'd be great.
That's actually really insane to even consider that. I mean, I see the Scory Gami tweets all the time, but like this, man.
Yeah. We will. I think Scorigami has Instagram. The UFL Scorigami has Instagram. We may have to. And Diego, I also wanted to ask you. We have to add that KC Sports guy. I don't know if you want him added. We've ran into him in the past, but I see him comment on a lot of just posts in general.
No. I do too, but at the same time, he's just a burner account. I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he was in one of our older group chats,
Yeah,
but
he
I
was.
think eventually we all got sick of him. So probably not the best person to add in.
Well, if you have his main, maybe we'll re-entertain that at a later time. But okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, I want to go into my thoughts a little bit. I mean, just hoping for another solid week. I think that Houston and Orlando game on FS1 has some potential to maybe crack 500K just because there's supposed to be a NASCAR lead-in, which that could help considering that they're kicking the game off around 5 p.m. Central Time. No, I mean, aside from that, yeah, the other games are on Fox, and then you got that ESPN game for the Dallas and Birmingham game, which, just hope viewership stays up. The Fox on Friday ratings have stayed really consistent, a lot better than last year for sure. No, I mean, aside from that, yeah, I think you touched up on it perfectly earlier, Ferris. Just hopefully all the teams still look competitive, even Houston. I mean, I really like that Zomb touched up on the whole trap game scenario, which I'm not ruling that out.
Houston, man, I was talking to another people before, like Houston, they just seem to drag teams down with them. Like it's so weird, but like you eliminate week 1 because it was week 1, and then the first Talia game, it's like every time they just drag whoever they're playing with down to their level, and it makes for some really compelling football. Because like I mean, dude, like both Columbus Houston games were like well under 3 hours long. Like this season, like games have been like historically longer than 3 hours, but like those 2 games are like over like that. I mean, it's crazy. Just Houston, man. There's something about that team. If they Kevin Sumlin didn't make a critical error every single week.
And another thing too is that it's crazy to consider that the 2022 Houston Gamblers are way better than this year's team alone. I mean, at least even though they went 3-7 that season, at least they kept almost every game competitive, even enough to the point that they were able to upset Jamar Smith and us in that week 9 game.
Micah Abernathy, bro, great moment. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, that team held the halftime lead in I think 9 of those 10 games.
Yeah.
But then to make it crazier, one of those losses was to the Kirby Wilson Maulers.
Yeah, no, literally. For all the diehard USFL fans, we will never get that one random touchdown where it like dribbled in for a touchdown. I think it was it was Justin Hall who caught that. Yeah.
Dude, that Gamblers team was special. Chris Odom, man, oh my God, he had like 4 or 5 block kicks in a year. I don't know how the team was possible.
Yeah, there was a lot that went on in that season. We long live the USFL, right? We miss its simplicity, right? There was so much that we looked back on. As you can see, we're all repping it in some fashion today. Obviously, Stallions were a part of that league initially, and they've been carried out through all these seasons. So being a constant driving factor of the league. In terms of closing thoughts, I don't really have much. It is Mother's Day on Sunday, so go out, celebrate with your families. If your time allows you to do so. Again, football is something that we love, was something that we always like to cover. It's something we always like to talk about. But again, some things come first, right? There's other things that people deal with, right? And we totally understand that. That being said, we'll see if hopefully we record on Monday. I'm hoping we do. We'll get confirmation from our other members. But Zomb, we thank you for joining us here tonight. You have always been a trusty member in our group chat that we can count on, for last minute features or anything like that. So we appreciate you joining us. You had the Michigan Panthers little teddy doll right there. But yeah. Did you guys have anything else before we get off the air here?
One last thing before we get off. Just want to give a little moment of silence for PJ Walker. He just announced his retirement. after playing the CFL last season. I mean, this guy, man, he created so many fans of spring football in that 2020 season. It really makes you wonder what could have happened if that season kept going on. Roughnecks probably would have won it all, but nonetheless, man, even in the NFL, he still surprised us with a lot of great moments. And it. I always thought deep down, I kind of always wished that he would play in spring football one last time, but in the end, I mean, those PJ Walker to Cam Phillips moments we will never forget.
Man, we were robbed of the Apollos versus the Roughnecks. Could you imagine those two teams? Oh my God, such a shame. He was so good that year, PJ. He was so good.
Yeah. There was, a pioneer of spring football, someone that created so much attention surrounding the sport. Like Diego said, he also surprised a lot of folks in the NFL when he was thrusted in as a starter or, potentially played, as a backup. Again, there were so many moments for him to be proud of. Again, it's hard to make as long of a career as he did. When you're a little more under the radar. Again, he came in with not very high expectations, someone that could be out of the league and out of football in general and not so much of time, or not so long of a time, right? So for him to really sustain a career as long as he did, it's really a good lesson for any aspiring athletes or, football players in general. So again, we thank PJ Walker for all of his dedication to spring football in general. Raf, one of our members and group chat members, was very sad to see him go. I think a lot of us follow him on his social media pages, so we're very upset to see him leave the sport because we know how much he really pioneered into following this. So. PJ Walker, we thank you for all of your football dedications, and we wish you a happy retirement and anything that may come after. So, guys, did you have anything else here before we get off the air? What I was gonna do for that LinkedIn shout out, Zomb, if you have LinkedIn, I'd be happy to put you. Okay, so I'll probably just screen record. I've actually been thinking of doing that, but now that we have Google Meet capabilities, I'll probably just screen record some. Times that, just some different topics, potentially topics that could be engaging with some viewers. So, again, we'll have all this out probably tomorrow morning. As soon as we're able to get on top of that, we will. Zomb will make sure to collaborate with you and all that good stuff. Make sure to check out Zomb's podcast too. He also happens to post a lot of clips and a lot of recordings on his Instagram page. And you're also on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're also on Twitter, and I mean, we do a lot of the same stuff, but we cross over a lot, with our topics. One more thing before we head off. I just saw, John Ross, we talked about it a little bit, released from the Stallions. And yeah, Diego doesn't seem to be a fan of the move. I mean, so yeah. We will probably get more into that next week. Maybe if you guys don't have a good week in terms of receiving, not putting that into words or anything, but it's probably something we can talk more about next week, as we just come on it at a little bit of an unfortunate time. So, all right. If that's all you guys have, I want to thank you for joining one more time. And as always, have a great night and enjoy another week of football.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Love you too.